Hi friends, so today I'm going to take a class on IIB. Like this class would be specifically to explain how do we develop a message flow in IIB. See, IIB is like from version 9 of Websphere Message Broker, which is an IBM product. It's called as IIB. The abbreviated form of IIB is IBM Integration Bus. At present, we have version 10 in the market. So it's being called as IIB from version 9. So right now, I'm going to make use of the toolkit of IIB version 9. So this is how to start the toolkit. Okay, before the toolkit starts, I just want to give a brief introduction. Like see, this IIB toolkit is a Eclipse provide IDE. So it would be similar as you work on like Java, you want to create some programs in Java, you make use of IDE. The most popular IDEs are you make use of NetBeans, and you also can make use of Eclipse, Eclipse Kepler or Eclipse Neon. So here also for developing some IIB related artifacts or applications, that's what we call as artifacts. As far as artifacts are concerned in IIB, we call them as like applications. So if you want to create some applications in IIB, you need to have an IDE. So the IDE is provided from Eclipse. So that's what I'm starting now, the Eclipse IDE. So it takes a little bit time to start. It says launching, please wait. So once IDE starts, we need to choose the workspace. Just waiting on the IDE to start. So this particular class would be intended on working with like showing of different categories of nodes, and what is an application, and like how do you create an application in IIB, and then how do you create a message flow in IIB, a simple message flow with the input and the output node. So that's what would be the agenda for this class. So I'm not going to go into like deeper I'm not going to give a deeper knowledge on IIB in this class. So I also have a class which would be explaining about what a broker is, or a message broker, a related broker instance is, how do we create that broker instance. And I will also explain, I have also explained in that class like how, like what are the components of IIB. When you install IIB, what are the different components you need to be concerned about. But this particular class would be specifically concentrating on like what an application is, how do you start how to create an application, a basic application, which would be a container of again a message flow, or it would be a container of a message set. Okay, so quite complex term in the first class, but see, this is how, like when the IDE is ready to start, then it will prompt you about the workspace. Okay, so we need to give a workspace. See, this is what it gives, like IIB tutorial. IIB tutorial is nothing but my username, and then under that you have a folder created by name IBM, and under IBM you have Integration Toolkit 9.0, and under Integration Toolkit 9.0 you have the workspace. Okay, so whatever application that you are trying to create would be stored under this particular path. Okay, So it's like C, and in users, and then under users, whatever the username is, under the username it will contain the IBM, and under IBM it is Integration Toolkit 90, and then Workspace. So this is not mandatory to have the Workspace at this location. It's not mandatory to have it. You can create a workspace in any place that you want, as far as like your system is concerned. But basically, if you don't choose any workspace, like if you don't go for a custom choice of workspace, then this is where your workspace would be available. See, again, I am telling the same thing. Workspace is nothing but where your artifacts that you create, artifacts in the sense an application, when you create that application has to be physically stored in a location in your system. It might be a desktop or a laptop or any server. So this is where it's going to be stored. So for example, if your username is like ABC, then it would be stored in C users ABC, and under ABC a folder is created by name IBM. Under IBM, integration toolkit is the integration toolkit, and the version, this is 9 version, so it's showing 90, and under that it would be workspace. So I don't want to like work on this particular folder. I would just create a folder called IIB online. This would be my folder name. Okay, so now whatever artifacts that I create would be stored inside IIB online folder. So first time when you open the toolkit, this is Eclipse IDE. This is what you see. It has a welcome screen. Okay, so if you want to directly go to the toolkit, you choose this option, go to the integration toolkit, and this is what you see. People who are familiar working on Java programs by making use of IDE, Eclipse IDE, it would be like very easy to identify different things like what a project is, what a run, different tabs over here can be easily identified by them. So here you can see there are different views that we can make use of when you are making use of like IDE, IIB specific IDE integration toolkit. So right now the class agenda is to just create an application. So in order to create an application, there are a number of ways. First of all, you need to be in an application development perspective. See, this is application development perspective. You see on the left side, it says application development. So this is in application development perspective. So if you want to change the perspective, there is an option like you can go here to the right side and open perspective and go for other, and you have different perspectives available over here. So right now we are in the integration development perspective. So I need not have to explain everything in a single class. So we'll just go with the integration development perspective, and then we see how do we create an application. So now, one way is to just go to File, New, and create a new application. The other way, we have like an application, new application over here. You just click the new, and it results in a window which has like application name. You have to give the application name and then just click finish, and the application would be created. There are 2 ways. So I'll go with the standard way, going to File, New, and Application. So the application name, let's say it's a sample application. This is the first application that we are creating. So I give the name as sample_app. Okay, this would be the name of the application. So you create a sample application. So here you can see a sample application is created. So as I told you in the beginning of the class, that an application would be a container of a message flow or message set. I will explain what a message flow would be or what a message set would be. But for now, you just have to remember that an application is a container of a message flow. So what do we, just creating an application does not have any solution. It's not a solution for a business case. So you need to have something called as message flow, which would be a part of the container that is the application. So the message flow will contain the actual business solution that you are trying to implement. So for creation of the message flow, you can just right click the application and then go for new, and then you can create a message flow. So this is how I create a message flow, and then I just give the name as sample underscore MF, just to specify that this is a message flow. For our understanding, it's not mandatory. You just give a sample, it will be still considered as a message flow. But just for our understanding, I'm just making it a sample underscore message flow, or for an application, I'm giving sample underscore app. But it's not mandatory to end an application with underscore app and end a message flow with underscore MF. Okay, and then we have an option like flow organization. So the flow organization is nothing but, see, if you just check this option, use default broker schema, then the sample underscore message flow would be created under this sample underscore app folder as it is. So for each, for an application that is created, there would be a folder created under the workspace that you have mentioned. Starting of the class, I have mentioned about the workspace. That's a physical location, a physical folder where you would be finding this application that you have created as a folder. So if you create a message flow with a default broker schema, then it will be lying directly inside the sample underscore app folder. I would show you after I create it. So there would be no middle layer or no middle folder like me between sample app and sample MF. There would be no folder in the middle. Directly sample underscore MF would be existing in the sample underscore app. So that's use default broker schema. So if you don't want to use default broker schema, you can uncheck this, and then you can create a broker schema here. You can just create a broker schema, give some broker schema name. So I just give sample as the broker schema name, and then finish. What happens is that under sample underscore app, there would be a schema created by name sample, and under sample, there would be a message flow created, which is sample underscore MF. See, under sample underscore app, there's a sample schema is created, and under sample schema, there's sample underscore MF created. So between sample underscore app and sample underscore message flow, there is a layer. Okay, there's a folder which is created. Okay, so it's a hierarchy. So it directly, if you are trying to access from sample underscore app, sample underscore MF, you cannot do that. You have a schema which is making the division. Now if you want to create another message flow, you can make use of a default broker schema, or you can create another message schema. So one of the uses of making use of the schema is that, see, if you want to create message flows with the same name inside the same application, then it's not possible. I'll show you one thing. Now, I don't use this broker schema. I make use of the sample schema, and then I again create sample underscore message flow, the same message flow. It says the resource sample underscore MF dot message flow already exists. So what if you want to create a message flow with the same name in the same container, that's the same application? It should not be inside the same broker schema. So broker schema, see, you can create a message flow with the same name if the broker schema is not same. But if the broker schema is the same and you want to create a message flow with the same name, it's not possible. And again, I am saying it's under under one application. So that's where it's like, that's one of the reasons why we make use of a broker schema. So if you want to create a message flow or a ESQL file inside an application with the same name, like multiple ESQL files or multiple message flows under the same application with the same name, then you have to make use of a schema. So that's what schema is used for. So now what I will do, I will make use of the default broker schema and create a message flow. Now you can see under sample underscore app, you have default broker schema which contains sample underscore mf.message flow. And under sample schema, you have sample underscore mf.message flow. The message flow names are same, but the schema is differentiating. Okay, there's a layer that differentiates between these two message flows. The name of the message flows are same, but the schemas are different. Okay, so once you create the message flow, you can observe a difference. Like you have something called as palette, which is shown here. Okay, it's just like, we can give an easy explanation for this. So you can imagine an artist, okay, one who can who is good at drawing. So he will have, like, what are the equipments that he carry. So whenever you get an artist in your mind who is who is good at drawing, what is the image that you get in your mind? That like he carries a palette in his hand. One hand he has a palette, and the other hand he has a brush, and he starts like painting on a white sheet. Okay, so this is also the same thing. So the white area, what you see here, is called as canvas, and on the left hand side you see something called as palette. Okay, so palette contains different categories of nodes. So these are different categories of nodes. And again, nodes is something like they are vital components of a message flow, like which describes the solution for a business case. For example, if you want to transfer or transport a message from one endpoint to other endpoint, the endpoint, what I mean to say is that protocol specific endpoint, transport protocol specific endpoints. To be very precise, I can say, like, if you have two transport specific protocols, and you want to transport a message from one endpoint to another endpoint, then how do we do it in IIB? So we need to create an application that contains a message flow, and the message flow will have the solution, actual solution for a business case. Here our business case is just to transport a message from one point to another point. When I say point, it would be a transport protocol. So transport protocol can be MQ, transport protocol can be HTTP, it can be a file FTP, or it can be from a database, like from one database to other database, or it can be like by specific adapters, making use of adapters. It can be a JMS protocol. So there are different kinds of protocols, transport protocols specifically. So how do you try to expose that protocols by making use of a message flow? So for that purpose, the palette, what you are seeing here, provides different categories of nodes. So when I say different categories of nodes, these categories of nodes are not only specific for in exposing the transport protocols, but they are also used for transformation. They are also used for enriching of the message. They are also used for database interaction, and they are also used for routing purpose. They are also used to make business decisions, like implementing some rules. So there are different uses of making use of this palette. So, but for this class, we are going to design a simple message flow, which is going to transport a message from one endpoint to other endpoint. So in this case, in this particular class, what we are going to do is we are going to make use of Websphere MQ. So Websphere MQ is the category of nodes in the palette which contains the nodes specific to MQ queues or MQs. So here the MQ what I'm talking about is IBM MQ series. So it's IBM MQ series. So for this class, what is important is how do you make use of nodes, transport protocol specific nodes. I'm again and again stressing the same point, transport protocol specific nodes. That's where a transaction starts. So a transaction starts from a transport protocol specific nodes and ends at another transport protocol specific node. So here we are going to make use of MQ nodes. So the name, you can see what are the MQ specific nodes available over here. And again I say, under Websphere MQ, whatever nodes that you are seeing, they are specific to just like transport. They don't do any kind of transformation. They don't do any kind of database interaction. They don't do any kind of like routing, but they are just for transport. So what are the nodes? We have MQ input, we have MQ output, MQ output. Okay, so what we are going to do is just we are going to keep a message on a queue that is going to be that is resolving to this MQ input node, and we are going to see like whether that message is being transported to the queue which is going to resolve to this MQ output node. So we can leave the name of the queue of the nodes as it is, or you can change the name of the nodes. It depends upon like what are the practices that are implemented at your client side. So if your client is very specific on naming the nodes, then you have to name the nodes, or else you can just leave it like that. But what I do is that I follow best practices. So I'm going to name the nodes. So when you see here, when you click at the MQ input, you can see like when I expand this, see what I did is I expanded the properties section over here. I just expanded here, and you can see the basic. So it starts from the basic. But before that, we have a description section which gives you the ability to change the node name. I can change the node name over here. I just say sample underscore MQ in. This would be when I write this sample underscore MQ in, automatically the name of the node would be sample underscore MQ in. And if I want to change MQ output, just double click here, expand the properties, and go to the description and just give sample underscore MQ out. And that's what you see here, right? So this is how you change the node names. These things seem to be very simple, but you have to remember whenever you try to create a message flow, these things have to be done as part of the best practices that you follow. And then you can choose a input node, which is sample underscore MQ in now. And then under the basic section, you have a property called queue name, which is a mandatory property. How do we specify, how do we know that this is a mandatory property? It's quite easy, everybody knows this. You just find an asterisk over here which says that this is a mandatory property, or you can see here queue name, a value must be set for this property. So we have to give a queue name. So any queue name, like I give it as sample underscore in. This would be my queue name. And for my output node, the queue name would be sample underscore out. If my output queue is also on the same queue manager where my input queue is lying, then I need not have to specify the queue manager name. Point to be noted, this is very important point. If the output queue is in the same queue manager where my input queue is lying, then I need not have to specify explicitly the queue manager name. So that's why I'm not giving the queue manager name. So here, this is the mandatory property. I again try to expand this property section, and then you can you don't see the line which says that queue name, this is property is a mandatory property. So the other properties what you see over here are not mandatory properties. We just want to work on a simple message flow which tries to send a message from one endpoint to other endpoint. So they both are queues. They both are specific, like IBM MQ series queues. So we just need to connect. So how does a message, see, the name is message flow, which contains a node. So how does a message flow from one node to another node? So there should be a connection. So that's like we should wire the input node to the output node. So basically the input node will have 3 terminals, 3 output terminals. Just keep in mind, any input node will not have an input terminal. It just has output terminals. Any transaction starting node or any input node will not have an input terminal. It will just have the output terminals. So here we have 3 output terminals. One is failure, the first one to be failure, second is out, third one is catch. So when a message, when a healthy message needs to be flowing through a connection, then it takes this out terminal, and then you will connect it to the in terminal of the output node. When there is no error, no validation error specific to the message, then the message will go take this path from the out terminal, and then when we are connecting the out terminal to the in terminal of the output node, the message will directly go to the queue that is being resolved by this particular output node. So now we have we have dragged and dropped the input node and the output node. We have changed the names, like default names, to some user-defined names of the nodes, and then we gave the queue names, queue specific names like sample underscore in and sample underscore out, and then our message flow is ready. The basic message flow is ready. So now what we need to do is that we need to deploy the message flow to the broker instance. From Message Broker version 9, as I told you in the beginning of the class, that it's being referred to as IIB or IBM Integration Bus. And there are also a couple of changes as far as the runtime components are being are named. For example, up till version 8, it was called as broker. The runtime component, the main runtime component is called as broker, or like broker instance that you create. From version 9, is being referred to as integration node, and the execution group, which was the JVM onto which the applications or libraries were deployed, are referred to as integration server. So you have to keep in mind now the basic integration, like runtime component is integration node, and then integration node will contain a integration server. It's synonymous. Integration node is synonymous to broker, and integration server is synonymous to a execution group. So no confusion in that. So whatever you have been working on Message Broker version 8, so you just have to correlate the terminology. So now we need to deploy the application to the integration server or the execution group, which is present in a integration node. So how do we do that? So before this, you just need to know how to create a integration node and how to create an integration server. My previous class has an explanation about how to create an integration node and how to create an integration server. You can just go through that. But in this class, I'll just deploy the application into the integration server. So here, under like you have integration nodes view, under which you have different integration nodes. So when you expand this, you'll able to see what are the different nodes that are available, integration nodes. And then I have a node called feb_node, which has a execution group or integration server by name default. Don't be confused, integration server and execution group are one and the same. So I have some applications which are deployed into this integration server. That's why you can see this expand symbol over here, but I don't want to work on that application. So I'll just try to right click the integration server and delete all flows and resources that are previously deployed in this integration server. So now there are no applications that are deployed here. So we can directly deploy this application into this integration server by just dragging and dropping it in the integration server. This is one way. See, I can just drag it and drop it, but make sure that you have saved your application. See, you did not save the application. We did not save the application. So we have to save the application so that all the changes that you have made up till now are saved. And then you can drag and drop the application into the execution group or integration server. So here it says deploying this app to the integration server. Its name is default. Okay, or you can right click the application and then deploy to the execution group. Finish, then you will deploy it. Or you can create a bar file and then deploy. Creating a bar file and deploying is something which I'm going to take in the next class. For this class, I just work on direct deployment. So you have other two options: directly deploying, dragging and dropping the application to the execution group or integration server, or right click the application and go for a deploy option and then choose the integration server specific to integration node. So now that we have deployed our application, we just need to check like what are the queue names. The queue names were sample_in and sample_out. Just you have to make sure whether the queue manager on which the broker or the integration node is lying has these queues or not. So for example, you see the node that we are using is feb_node. So under feb_node, like on which queue manager this feb_node is lying, that we have to check. So when you click here, you can see in the properties section, the queue manager name is feb_qmgr. So we have to make sure that the queues that you have specified here are already present in this feb_qmgr queue manager. So how do we check it? So you can go to the command prompt. You can open the command prompt, and then you can run the command run mqsc. The queue manager name is feb_qmgr. So we are inside the scope of the queue manager. Now we can run the command display queue local sample underscore in. It says Websphere MQ object sample underscore in is not found. So what does this signify? That whatever queue name that you have specified here is not present in the queue manager on top of which this broker is running. So there's nothing wrong. You can just create it here. You just go with the command define queue local sample underscore in. And then the output queue define queue local sample underscore out. So we have created the queues. Now everything is ready. Now how do we test it? So we can test it. See, what are we trying to achieve? We are trying to achieve a simple use case. We're trying to put a message to sample underscore in, which is resolving to this input node, and we want to get the message into sample underscore out, which is resolving to this output node. So just try to keep a message in sample underscore in. You can make use of AMQS put, which is a default program that comes with MQ series installation to just test the whether a queue whether a message can be put onto a queue or not. So the queue name is sample underscore in, and the queue manager name is feb underscore qmgr. So target queue name is sample underscore in. So the message, what would be the message? We give a simple message: hi, this is a test for sample underscore mf. Enter twice, and then you come out of the scope of this AMQS put. And now you have to check whether the message will reach the sample underscore out. So for that, the command is AMQS get sample underscore out feb underscore qmgr. See, we got the message here. So we are successful in creating a message flow, a simple message flow which just transports a message from one endpoint to other endpoint. Here the endpoints being MQ endpoints. So this was the class which gives the explanation of a simple application, message flow, application and a message flow creation and a deployment mechanism. So hope you guys understood my class. If you like my class, just do comment. Your comments are invited. I would like to reply on your comments. Please do comment and please do subscribe my channel. My channel name is IIB Guru. Thank you and good night.